Okay. So let's start with where we are at the moment with the application. So I will just run it through and we'll see what we got so far. It's starting out. Okay, I think we can minimize this, close this one as well. All right. So we have the basic application where we have GitHub users coming in. This is written in what we call the Jetpack Compose, and we'll be integrating with push notifications and see what we can do in terms of integration push notifications. So so anyone have any idea on what sort of things with push notification that we can get that kind of thing? Do you need an introduction to push notification and all? Raise your hand if you need an introduction, or what are the capabilities of push notification, what sort of things that we try to achieve with push notifications. Okay. All right. So yeah, push notification is a technology that's allow us to send notification via an application. So the user can get notified in two different scenarios. So one basically is that when the user is using the application, that means the application what we call is in foreground. So right now I'm running my application in foreground. So the foreground, while we are in foreground, we might get notification from some other service. Say for example, um, we might get a push notification from one of our applications. Say for instance, I can get a push notification from one of our apps. Let's say I have subscribed to, or I have installed this GitHub user application. So imagine a scenario where this application can notify me if a user has joined GitHub. Okay, this is an imaginary thing, but something like that. So, for instance, a new user has joined our list, so we can go and see who has worked and who is working on that. So we can check, we can work. We can get a notification this user has joined, and you will probably have seen in your Android or iOS application something like this. So these are like some of the push notifications that I am getting from Google. Okay, and there are some push notifications uh, that that can be sent to the user to indicate something. Something like there's an offer, or you have reached some sort of milestone. Anything that is user might click on and user will work on. We can have these things in our notification section. So these are like the notification that I'm getting right now. So what we will develop is to get a notification into this section. Okay, so we'll be using Firebase and Firebase cloud messaging services, which is kind of free, where we can test easily with the application. That means when we want to send some push notification, what we have to do is there's a special section on Firebase where we can say, okay, I need to send a push notification, and there's a nice GUI provided by Firebase, so I can test it out. Any content that is shown there, it will be shown in my application. So as I mentioned earlier, push notifications will be received either we are in the application or we are on the background. Okay, so we need to handle both scenarios. Most of the time, push notifications comes in play when uh, for when we are not within the application, but we are running the application in background. Okay, so we'll see push notification appearing on our notification board or this notification area. If you are in the foreground, if you are not in the if you are in the foreground, we will receive the notification something around here. We'll see how it goes, and we will adapt to the implementation while we are doing that. Okay. Right. So let's get started with the first thing that we will be needing. The first thing that we will need is the Firebase integration. So it's gonna be something really simple at an instance, but we will check on what are the things that we need to do. So first of all, there are several ways that we can integrate Firebase into our application. The easiest, foremost way would be having the Android Studio to have the Firebase integration. So normally within tools, you will find the Firebase link in here, so we can easily incorporate Firebase within our application. So we have a couple of things that we can configure, like are we interested in authentication, authentication, real-time database. Then there are like Cloud Firestore, Cloud Function. So there are a lot of applications available, but in our uh, in our application, we will be working with cloud messaging. Okay, so Firebase cloud messaging, what we have to do is we have to set up within our application. So we can get started. So we'll work with the cloud messaging section. Okay. So what I'll do is I will go to the cloud messaging and set up Firebase cloud messaging. Okay. So first thing that I'll be using this FCM setup that that is laid out here. So what we can do is first thing is connect your app to the Firebase. So first I need to connect this to Firebase. Then I need to add Firebase cloud messaging to my app. Let's see what we can do. So I'll click on connect to Firebase. So it's gonna launch the Firebase console for me. Okay. So I can select one of the project that is available right now, or I can add a new project. Okay. So I'll just create a new project. So it will be easy, and you can see it's automatically setting up project name for me. So that is good. It's easy for me to go with, and I do not wish to enable Google Analytics. So I'll just disable it, and I'll just create this project. It will take a few minutes to set up the project, and we can utilize that. Almost there. Okay, my new project is there. I'll continue. And it's gonna ask the integration for the Android Studio and Firebase, that would I like to allow this communication to happen. So in this scenario, what will happen is I can connect my Android Studio with the Firebase console. That will make things easy from my application or Android Studio development side. So I'll just hit connect. Your Android Studio is connected to your Firebase Android app. Now you can use Firebase in your project. Go back to Android Studio and start one of the SDKs. So that means I'm done with setting up. So that is good. And you can see there is a message notifying that the Firebase connection has happened. That does not mean we have set up the push notification as a whole, but we have some capabilities that we can work with Firebase. We have to choose what are the things that we will be working with. Okay, and yeah, next thing that I want to do is add Firebase cloud messaging. So I have Firebase um, within my application. So I have plenty of other resources or plenty of other services that is available from Firebase. Right now, I am interested in only in Firebase cloud messaging. So I will add Firebase cloud message to my app. So you can see that it will do these following changes. So within our application, it will add few of these few of these things into my application. Right now, with the build.gradle, that is like the project level one, it will add the Google service, and for the app level service, we'll be having the implementation or reference to this, and also it's going to add the implementation of Firebase messaging Kotlin into the application. So I need to select which one that I am going to be focusing on. Since this is going to be Android specific one, I'm not going to focus on this in KNM level. I'll be focusing on Android app. So I'll be working with the Android app itself. So I'll use Android app in here, and I will accept these changes. So what it will basically do is add these dependencies to my project. So once I hit OK, you can see the Gradle is doing its job. It's importing the things that we need, and I think the Gradle sync is also going on. So I don't want to like do a manual build. So if I look in here, the build dot gradle.kts, it is also here. And one thing that you would notice is this Google Service JSON, which contains about the Firebase integration into my application. So you will see this file as well. So the content will have some sensitive information with the application. So I will open it, but most of these things will be deleted after I am done recording. So these are like the services, the API keys. These things should be in these keys and everything should be kept in secret. Right now, I'm gonna delete these things after this recording. So it's gonna have some information and configurations which is related to this project itself. So these are automatically implemented while we are developing, while we are connecting to our application. And within the build.gradle, you would find that Firebase messaging KTX is added to this project. And this is the Android app itself. So the build.gradle file, it should have Google services right around here. Okay. So these dependencies that we are working with is in place. So we don't have to work with these things manually. But if you do not want to go in the Android Studio way, these things should be done by yourself. That is nothing. Um, there is nothing uh, magic about it. We have to just manually do these things, adding the Google service file and enabling these dependencies. But luckily, we have the implementation going on, doing for us, so we don't have to worry about it that much. Okay, access the device registration token. This is the next thing that we need to do, and so this is something that we will be talking in depth. So initial setup of your app from Firebase Cloud Messaging SDK generates a registration token for your app client instance. If you want to target a single device or create groups, you will be needing access to this token. You can access the token value by creating a new class which extends Firebase instance ID service. In that class, called getToken with token refresh blob is shown here. So whenever we instantiate something in our application, what we will get is for each and every device that we have, we will get something called um, a registration token. Okay, we will get a registration token. That means it's like a unique identifier for your phone. So when Firebase want to send a message, they will use that unique identifier. So for instance, if you have a single device that you are targeting on, a push notification should be sent a specific uh, user. Then what you have to do is you have to use this. You have to use this. You have to use this token to send this out. Otherwise, if you are in general, like you don't want to send to a specific group or users, you can just push the you can push it without specifying any token, so everybody in this channel will get that. Okay, so this token will be something useful when we are working with the backend stuff, which will be used in an instance where, say for instance, I want to send a push notification for a certain user. Okay, let's say I have 10 users within my application. I want to send a general message. I can send a push notification without worrying about any specific device. I can use the Firebase console. But say, for instance, I need to send a specific message for a specific user for some reason. And what I have to do is I have to take this refresh token or this token instance, and I have to send it I have sent it to my backend, and backend will say, okay, there are like 10 individual token that you can use. If you want to access this device, or if you want to uh, send a specific message for this user, you have to use this token. So token defines who you are, and if you need a group message, you can do that one in here as well. We'll see about getting this token, but right now we will be not handling that in our application. Okay, so next thing that we need to do, we need to create this service in our manifest file. So Android manifest, if you guys can remember, we have plenty of things to be defined. Let me check src Android manifest. So Android manifest contains a lot of the things that we are going around with the application. For this instance, we have permission, and we have the application definition, and this one is called a service. Okay, so a service is what we call that is running on the background. Okay, something that we register, and what we will get something from a background perspective. I'm not talking about something like background task or fetching something from internet. I'm talking in here a long running service. So when we define a service within our manifest, what will happen is when we install this application, this service will get registered in Android core Android operating system. That means this there is a service which will be running even though your application is in the foreground or background. This service will be listening into the changes that we are making. Okay, so this service definition that we are going to do is gonna be running on the background, and we will utilize this while we were working on the application setup. Okay, and one thing uh, that we will be doing is once the application configuration is done, Firebase messaging added. Okay, so I might need to create this service, my Firebase instance ID service. Okay, let's create it. I think it is not created by default at this moment. No, it is not created. So what I'll do is I will create this service and get a registration on it. So first thing I would think this is the which extend Firebase instance service. Firebase. Let me check. Let's go with the implementation. On initial setup, you can access your token by creating a new class which extend the instance ID on that class and refresh token. My instance ID service. So I will create this instance ID service first, then I will go to the Firebase messaging. So first, I'm gonna use the naming convention that is service that is used around here. Okay. So first thing I will create the service. So in my KMM Android, I will create a new package for easiness. I will call this services. Okay, do not get confused with the service what we have seen in view models and everything. We have services for repositories and all. This is somewhat what we call a background service, the Android application related service. So there will be a class. I will say my Firebase instance service ID. Service ID. This is the class that I am interested in. So if I want to utilize the new token and everything, what I need to do is extend this Firebase instance ID service. So when I extend this, I will get the other classes that I want to working with. Let me import that. Okay, I need to have the implementation. Let's see where is this instance is coming from. It should be somewhere from this place. Firebase, I think they have changed. Sure. Firebase instance ID service. Now it's no longer there. Let me check. Do I have a documentation? Think not. Let me check where I can import this. Firebase instance service not found. Okay, token ID. Okay, seems to be the class is no longer in use. Firebase instance ID service is deprecated. Firebase cloud messaging. So as Google deprecated Firebase instance service, token firm deprecated Firebase messaging service. Okay, I think I have to implement that. Firebase instance ID also deprecated. Firebase messaging get instance token. Okay, there are several ways that we can use. I will use the Firebase messaging service. Let's see whether it is there. Option. Yeah. Seems to be the documentation. It's even like outdated. So we can utilize always the internet for the latest one. So in here, I can, or I hope the API is not change on new token. Let's see whether we have that. I can control space, or I can sorry, change the language. Come on, changing my language. So okay, I'll just say on new token. Yes, I think the APIs remain same. The application itself changed. The interface name might have changed. So we can say we can see on new token. That means when somebody is leaving out with the token, I can list that out in here. So if I want this token to be sent out for our service, we need to find a way to okay. The user have registered. I need to send this to the token, then I can do that. Okay. Right now, I'll just log it. When we need it, the token that we are supposed to use, we will have that in a later video. So right now, I will just use the log and log D to have a debugging point. I'll say Firebase instance ID as the logger, Firebase instance ID, and I will take the token to be printed out. So I will print out the token once I get it. And next thing, so we have instantiated the Firebase messaging service. Now what I have to do is I need to register this service. I need to register this service. Uh, um, I need to register this service to send it elsewhere. And there are other functions as well. For instance, there is on token, sorry, token refresh. The API seems to be changed. Let's see anything related to token. Is there? No, seems to be not. Token. No, seems to be okay. Let's have this method for now. Right now, what we need to do is we implement the Firebase messaging service. Next thing that we need to do is we need to actually register this service. Otherwise, Android system would not know that we need to connect with the Firebase messaging service. So I'll copy this service definition, go to my Android manifest, and I will put it in here. Okay. As Android 12, exporter must set true to make activity available on other apps, false otherwise. Service element must be the service should be in within the application, if I'm not mistaken. Set exported for as of Android 12, Android exporter must be set to make the activity available for other apps, false otherwise. There seems to be new implementation that I must do. Exported level, I will just go with false. That means it's not going to work with other things, but I need to select the class. So I need to, since I have put within a different package, services.myfirebase, so the name would be the services.myfirebase instance ID. All right, so far we have instantiate this service definition. We have registered the service within our application, within our manifest, and let's see what else that we need to do in order to set up. So I think the documentation seems to be outdated at this moment. I'm not sure. Let's see whether we have more. Firebase, cloud messaging. Let's see here. Android. I have found documentation. Let's see whether it's even this is updated. Edit your manifest. Firebase. Okay, yeah, it's at least this one that we are saying in the application. It is mostly updated one. Let's see whether the service intent filter is correct. Otherwise, we won't get anything from our application. Intent filter. Yeah, seems to be okay with that. So we have at the service extend the Firebase messaging service. So that's what we did. Extend the Firebase messaging service. I will just close this documentation. Seems to be it is bit of outdated, but let's keep it in hand. But something might pop up. So next thing that we need to do, yeah, I talked about the deprecation in here. We added that, and optional within the application component meta element to set default notification icon and color. Android use the value whenever income message explicitly icon or color. So as you might have seen, um, there are notification icons that we can put, like to indicate, okay, this message is coming from this application, or this is like the default notification icon that we want to see. So right now, we'll not set these things up. We'll see if something comes in, like if you want to change the notification icon or something like that, if you want to change this. Notification channels are supported and recommended. FCM provide default notification channel with basic settings. If you create your own default channels, set up default notification channels. So this is also um, optional. So we have this option called channel. We can set it up. Right now, we'll just go with the default flow, and if you need some fine tuning, we will we'll get these things up and running. Okay. So the other things is like requesting runtime notification permission. So Android 13 and plus, we need permission to set up. Include post notification, permission to define manifest. However, you also need to request runtime version of the permission via instant, so post notification, and that this basically means we have some permissions up until version 23, but in some occasions at runtime we might need to request permission asking from the user, whether we can show you push notification, or we can say we do not want to show any push notification from you. So it is like a safety or something that fine tune with your security. So if you do not want to see any notifications, you can decline, or if you can if you need something something that is not that much needed for permission wise, you can skip it, but it would be preferred if you are targeting something from 13 or higher. You should have this permission to show the post notifications. Okay, so let's see it in action. And this might not needed for API level 32 all over. Okay, but we need to have this notification in order to show some things in our application. If the user does not agree, we can just say, okay, I'm not interested in having this. Monitor token generation. I think we have seen this. Um, set up topics, set up notification. I'm not sure this is following the compose way of doing it. Let me check. FCM Jetpack compose. add in the manifest. We have defined the application. We have defined the meta. Mm, okay, so we will set up. There are like few things we need to do in terms of in terms of the application setup with the KMM or the Jetpack Compose way. So one thing that we need to do is have these notification flag setup. So I'll just copy this section and let's go through the application one by one. Let's see, option enter. You can provide. So I'm copying out from so we will be using main activity KT. Option, I'll add flags, adding intent. Let me see what I'm missing. I have messaging service, Firebase, okay. Okay, token. Let me think. I think notification compact is missing in my application. Let me quickly grab that one as well. Give me a second. First of all, I would properties, build a Gradle. I'm missing some dependencies and For notification, I think I need app contact. For Android Xcode is something that I need to add. Okay, let's add that as well. And we need notification manager. That is important, and I will use the build version class build, which is the channel name. I think let's keep the intent now for later on. First, I think I should implement the what do you call the permission handling. Let's do that first. Okay, so we might need to show the permission handling within our application. As you can see, request in runtime notification permission. So we need to implement that. The other part, I think, what should happen when we click on the notification. So we will have the push notification permission in place, and we'll see what we can do with the permission handling. Let me check what we can do with the permission handling. Messaging service. What we need is screens. We need to have the permission dialog. Function. I think I might need to change my mic. All of you can hear me, right? I think yes. Okay. Function. Check. I can put this in. Build version, request permission launcher. Okay, I think I found the location. Um, mm, so what we'll do is we'll use something which help us with Android application permission setup. So we'll use something called App Accompanist, which is from Google itself to handle some permissions for us. It will be easy for handling the permissions. So what I'll do is I'll go to the build.gradle in the application, and I will use this app company's um, permission dependency. Okay, we'll see how we can use that. I think the version that I'm using might be a bit old, but um, no, I don't need that. I will be using this to permission, showing the permission dialog. Device. So this is something needed from Android 13 and higher. So we might need to check the implementation, whether we want to show this uh, in applications where the Android version is 13 or higher. Otherwise, it is not useful. The earlier version do not need this permission. So we need to check explicitly whether okay, are we in this version? If we are, then we need to show the dialogue in order to make this happen. So what we can do is we can go to the theme section. So okay, I can go to the main activity even. So this is like the starting point from to our application. So within the theme section, we can check if build gives us details about the version and what is the operating system, that kind of thing. So we have a lot of things with the application. So this is OS level things that we can go get. So we can say version from this version. I can say SDK int. That means we are getting the SDK version out of the application, out of the phone actually when we are running. If it is less than or equal to build build version codes, okay, and the code for the iOS for Android 13 is called
tiramisu. Okay, I'm not sure if I misspelled it. So anyhow, if my application is running something greater than the version 13, what I need to do is I need to show a permission dialog saying, hey, in order to show push notifications, you need to have the permission dialog represented, or you need to show the permission dialog in order to work with that. So I'll be using the composable view that is in here. So I will import these things first. Import request API, experimental class, remember permission state, and the permission that I am interested in, permission post notification. But I have this, let's see. Relational dialog. Oops. Relational dialog, which is coming from relational dialog. Okay. This is like an alert box that we need to show. So I will have this in a separate file. I will say permission. I'll just use whatever the file name that we have. I will copy under something like common, so it won't make common, and I will create this new file, Kotlin class, don't have specific security, okay, and I will have these composables, which will help with me the creation. Better do the imports as well. Right, what are we missing? We are missing alert dialog. We'll be extending. Okay, I'm gonna use this extending functions. A text. Text. Modifiers in the dialog. I have another class. Sorry, a package in here called ext, and we will copy these some of the help classes. Kotlin class. We'll copy these classes and let's go one by one what these are for. These are UI modifiers. And there are few other modifiers that I need to work with. Those are called app string extension. And for the string extension, I would these classes. Okay, and then I will have one more thing, task extension. And this section over. I don't think I need the task. Let's see. And what I need is something called app context permission dialog. I think I need to import this, the app text class, which is coming from R string, the resource generated one. Com.hrun with as app string. And I might need to create these resources. It's not in this style, but in string. Under resources, I might need to create the files, values, string.xml. I will create the string.xml, which will have the values for showing the value resource. This string.xml. Okay. And the resources, I'm gonna copy few things and I'm gonna leave it out there. These are not all the things that we need. I'll leave for now. I'm copying from the repository. I'll share that as soon as we are done. So notification, permission title, these things should come. Import extension. If I don't need this, yeah, this one I don't need for sure. Let me delete that. Okay. I need something called relational dialog, or what I need a permission dialog. Okay, so both are like in this composable, but there are still missing stuff that we need to get in here. For main activity, I think we have one permission is missing. Let's see what what we are missing in here first. Manifest permission. Post notification is the permission that we need. It's not showing. Let's see why it is not. I might need Android manifest as the import. Okay, that goes the issue, and I might before I forget the permission, I need to add it in here as well. Users permission. That one is called post notifications. I need to ask for this permission. This is for older version, but for new version, we need to find another way. And one other thing that I need to do is getting this string resource to be working. And I need to say ID dot string. String.xml is here. I need to build this. Let's see. Okay, we have errors. Let's see how we can get those things as well. Color, I think I can have like color dot something like black. That is okay for now. I do not need any specific color. Color dot black. Okay. So I can have this text even hard coded. Let's get the text hard coded. Otherwise, we are making wasting time. So the text that I need is notification permission title. Can go with the string.xml notification permission. This is what we're going to be showing. I don't need it to be string resource. I'll just say without permission, notification permission description. I need to get the description from here. Okay, this notification import, please grant this permission. We are just giving a good description why we should allow this. And request notification permission. String. Request permission. Okay. We will use this text and notification permission title. It's going to be the same and the description will be the same. So that's why we are using the normal XML files, but right now it's not generating. For easiness, you just have that like this. The description also something like this. What's it called? The description. Settings. this is something like a description. I'm just copy and paste the content from string.xml. Okay, it's for the okay. I think that you can just say okay. Okay, all right. Seems to be fixing all the remaining permission issues. Let's try to get it running. JetBrains compilation error. Okay, I think I have use import. I'll just remove that. Let's see. Okay, it seems to be working. Seems to be our version is less than 13, or either we haven't got the application. Okay, sorry, I need to implement the caller function in here. So I'll just put the request permission dialog in here. Okay, that should do the trick. It should ask me, since I'm in the latest version, it should ask me with the permissions. Okay, you can see that notification permissions, the notification permissions import for the request permission. Then I can say it asks me, would you like to allow this application to send notification? I will say allow it. So now I am able to send a notification to this application. We'll see how we can test that. First, I will what I'll do is I will show you guys how what I have done so far. Then I will go to the testing notification. Otherwise, you will get lost. So first thing that I have done is when I'm launching my application, when I'm launching the application itself, I'm checking whether the version is 13 or more. Okay, so the reason behind that, the SDK version that we are trying to access, it clearly states in the documentation. Android 13 introduced new runtime permission for showing notification. This all affect running application on Android 13 or higher that uses SVM notification. So what we need to do is we need to make sure if our applications run on Android 13 or plus, we need to ask them for permission to show notification. Otherwise, anyone with the application, they might use the application itself, but they will be not interested in having a push notification. So that can happen. People can use the app, but they don't need push notification. So Android 13 introduced this push notification. So we need to ask permission for post notification. Okay, we need this permission in order to send users notification. If the user do not have this post notification permission allowed, so we can't send push notification. That will be a problem. So what we need to do is we need to ask this permission to be allowed by the user. Okay, so we need to handle these sections using permission loaders. Okay, so what will happen when the user gives us the permission, and what will happen if they do not give the permission? So what we'll need is we will need to give this permission. So what I have done in here, I will check the built-in SDK version, and if it is higher than the version that we are supposed that the version Android version 13, then we will be requesting permission dialog. Okay, if it is less, we do not have to worry about giving permission. Older version do not need this permission. But if it is Android 13 no plus, we would need that permission to be running. So if I go to my device right now, and okay, if I go to settings, sorry, that is not setting, that is the, okay, here you have settings. And if I go to the about emulated device, maybe I can see the Android version. Yeah, so I'm using Android version 13 in my machine, in my simulator. So I need to comply to that notification check. So I am doing that. If I do not do this permission requesting, what would happen is I would not get the notifications. Okay, so I will be showing this request permission dialog. In here I'm using experimental permission APIs and request require API this level. So in order to show this composable, we need Android version 13 or plus. So that's why we say requires API. If you do not have this API level, this composable will not work. So we don't have to worry about that because we check in the runtime, is it greater than the version that we are mentioning in here. So this if statement is always going to true if you are in 13, and when you are coming to this composable, it's gonna be okay. You don't have to worry about that. The next thing that we are using is something called this accompanist. Okay, so the accompanist will help us to show the permission granting dialogues and everything. So we do not want to create our own dialogues. If you look at the Firebase integration, they have request permission loader and everything, and we need to implement this API. So rather than doing that, we can do it in our when we are using the accompanist. So it will help us to get the permissions, but only these are like experimental things. So don't expect some changes from this from here. So there we check the permission state. Okay, so, whether if the user is running this for the second time. Okay, if the user is running the application for second time, then do not need to give grant permission all the time that we are asking. So right now it is not asking the permission because we have already given that. Maybe if I think it should. If I remove the application, which is this one, if I'm not mistaken, have the info. Yeah, this one, I will uninstall the application right now and see what happens. Okay, I'll run it once again. So this time it will install. I'm not sure whether it is okay. So since I have installed the application, the permission that I need to show, it is missing. So it is asking for the permission again. So we have a method called remember permission state, which is coming from the experimental API. And the permission that we are asking is whether we are allowed to post notifications. So in here, we are asking All right. We need the permission from user to allow or decline the post notifications. So what will happen is if the permission state is already granted, it's not gonna ask what we're gonna do. If it is not, it's gonna show us a notification permission dialog like this, and we can request the permission from the application itself. So this is the same way that if you are using the old way, you can request permission launcher and ask notification permission. So it is like a wrapper around those two methods, so we don't have to work on that much. So, and what we are looking at in here, the permission state, if the from the permission state and the status is granted and not. So that means if we did not granted, that means we did not granted the notification, what will happen is we should say if it is not granted, that in the sense user have not given the permission. So let's go for the request permission and say let's say we do not allow. Okay, do not allow. Then what we'll have is the notification permission, the permission important for your app. Please navigate to your device settings and enable notification. Let's say okay. And once again, if I am if I force stop, that means I'm gonna stop it from the background, and then if I run it again, now you guys can see the notification permission. The notification permission is important for the app. Please navigate to your device and enable notification. So what will happen is we have two options. If it is not granted, and one thing that we can do is we can say why this is important and why we should show this. That means user has declined the permission, but again we need to remind them, okay, this is the case. If you want the full features, have the full notification enable, but this is not something what we called this is not something what we called a must solution, but should be if the user declined it, but we need to pursue him, or we need to say how important that is. We need to show this relational dialog. So this is a composable view. Okay, this view that I have copy paste. I will show you the link and description. I will share those things. So it will just show a relational dialog saying notification permission important and enable notification, and you have the okay to dismiss this permission and everything. So it's basically if the user declined it, it's gonna pop up and say. So I'm not gonna go through the alert dialog composition. You guys can see we are using an alert box, modifier text, and confirmation button, and this dismiss request, what will happen and everything, and everything on that. So this is like a composable view that you will see if the user have declined, but we need to pursue that user should enable the enable the push notifications. And the other way around, you can clearly see that permission dialog. That means he haven't granted, and the other use case is it is not granted, but it's the first time whether we have allowed or not. So if we have not allowed, what we'll show is this composable showing the permission request, saying please grant the request, and if you grant the request, what we will do is we will enable this function to be executed, the request permission. Otherwise, we will just close it. So the main thing that we need to do is permission state, launch permission request. If you guys can remember in here, request permission launcher. Okay, so we have the request permission launcher request so that we can ask them to, okay, I need this permission state to launch the permission request. That means we are requesting to enable this notification. We are asking them to give us the push notification permissions. Okay, so two things. If it is permission state is granted, we are not showing anything. If it is not granted and user say do not allow, then we will say, okay, hey, this is important for us, so have it enabled. Or we can just say if they have not declined but they have not allowed at the first time, so they haven't shown the initial permission granted, we will save this permission dialog. Okay, this dialog is a small composable like what we see in the relational dialog. You will see something similar in here. And what we'll do is with the permission dialog, you will see the permission stage, launch permission request. And that's it. That's simply going to show us the permission model that we have seen. Right now, if we since we have disabled this, we need to enable the permission. What I can do is I can long press on the application and go to app info, and you can see that the permissions that I need is from notification. I will allow this from here, so we'll see the notifications. So if I'm not mistaken, I can go back in the application. Let me close it. Close all the application that I have in here. And since I have allowed it, the application won't bother me saying, okay, I need to push, I need to show the application, I need to grant the permission and so on. Okay. Up until this, the implementation for notification, do we have anything to be clarified once again? Okay, pretty much simple. We just incorporate Firebase. We use the Android Studio inbuilt Firebase section, and what we have done is we have done with the project setup. We have used the service section and Firebase instance ID. So this one I think we won't need at this level. What this action should be doing is when we click on the notification, what should happen, where should we go, or something like that. So we will look into that. Right now, we will just try to get our first push notification in our application. Okay, the setting up part is almost done. So is the import organize control sheet. Okay. So almost the setting up part is done. We will see the first Firebase ID once we created the application. Should be in my logcat. I think it's already created. Let's run it once more time. Let me delete this application. I'm not sure whether it's happening on the time that we are getting a notification. Okay, I have remove everything. I'll install once again. And let me go to locate. I will allow this. Right now, I'm not getting anything the Firebase instance side. Maybe I need to set up some stuff. Let's see, let's try to get a notification in place. So next thing I would do, I need to get, I need to go to the Firebase Firebase notification to be sent. So what I'll do is I will go to the messaging dashboard in my Firebase console. Let me go to Firebase console so I can access things from there. So for testing purposes from Firebase and I can use this for testing right now. Let's see. Go to our project, and I think we have a messaging section. Okay, cloud messaging. Let's go there. Create your first campaign. What's your cloud messaging? I think I need to test. I think I need to create Firebase notification messages, send notification instantly, send in-app message to activate users to subscribe watch video. So I will be using Firebase notification messages, something that you will see. And I won't need this. What should be the title that I'm going to be showing here? I will say hi, and the notification text that I'm going to show. This is the first message. Okay. And if you have an image that you want to show with this one, you can use that. Or I can send a initial say and test message. For testing out, you cannot test campaign by entering selection registration tokens. So we do not have any test devices set up. That means the token that we need to send. I think the app is selectable right now. Let's see what we can go with that. No scheduling. I'll just say now. Customization key. I'll just review. Okay, publish. I think I can test notification in here, but I need that notification message to show. I need the Firebase messaging instance get token. So I need to add that token in here in order to send the test notifications. So first thing I need to do is I need to find a way to get the new token in place. I think I have done it correctly, but seems to be not triggering. Either the service is wrong, either my service registration in here is wrong. Messaging service. Let's see if there is another way of taking the message. Messaging service. On new token, that is like the let's see, I don't need Oops. On new token string should be the use case. Okay, am I using the wrong? Yeah, seems to be I was on the wrong emulator. So what I'll do is I'll run this once again. I think I have the new token in here. This should be the token I am interested in. I'll just have another. Can I copy this? And I will just try to paste it somewhere else first. See whether there are any errors. Yeah, I think I'm good with the code. I'll just copy the code once again. I'll go to Firebase console and registration token. I will add that and I will hit test. So I'm not getting any messages. See, you can see that I send a message after I add the notification token. And if I say test, it is not showing me any notification. Okay, so you guys can see it is not, even though I clear, it's not showing. But let me put it in background. Okay, let me test it once again. Send a test message. Test. Okay, we have something. You guys can see. Hi, this is the first message, and you guys can see that is clickable. So remember, as I mentioned earlier, when we are working with the application, there are two states. So one is the foreground state. That means I'm running the application right now, and when I'm running this application, when I'm running the application in foreground, that means while I'm using, and if I try to send a test message in here, so I will change the message. This is my second message, and if I hit send test message and select the test token that I want to send, and if I hit test, so what will happen is I would not get the push notification in here. But what I'll do is I will put this application in background. Okay, and if I try to send this application, this is my third message. If I hit send message, select the device, and if I hit test, so now you guys can see what happened. Did I select anything else? I put it in background, send a message, select this and test. Android Studio, now you guys can see that it is showing the message and it's the correct message that I have sent. It is the third message. And if I click on it, by default, what it will do is it will open the application. Sorry, it will open the application, but we can customize even that saying, okay, rather than opening the application, perhaps we should open up somewhere else. Okay, like maybe a specific page or something like that, we can customize that. For now, what it does is it's gonna open it in the normal application. It will just launch it. Okay, I can send more push notification. This is my fourth message. And remember, when we have to consider the two possibilities. One is in the background and the other one is when we are in the foreground. Okay, so foreground, um I'm not gonna play around with the foreground messages, how how we gonna be interacting with foreground messages, what's the mechanism behind it. Okay, for now we'll be looking at the test messages that we can send from the background itself. And of course, you can click on it, the application will launch once again. So make sure we implement this class, and once we have done, right now I have saved my token in just print it out in my logcat, so I can get the token, and I need to copy this token and add it in my test device section, so I can select that token and send. So without this token, what will happen is we do not know to whom to send or what sort of applications to be sent. So if I need notification image, notification name, we can customize that as well. So I might need a PNG file. Let me get a PNG file so I can show you. YouTube, I can say Firebase PNG. See, I can get a PNG from Firebase. They have the should be able to get the image. Go. Here, those all are not allowing me to get the logo for some reason. Copy image address. Let me see if the image is showing something here. So I have this image with me, and I'll just use for demonstration. So when I'm sending, I can say use this PNG file. I can upload one file. Let's test this notification with the same device, and we'll make sure that we are in background. Of course, we are in background, and I will try to test this out. And if I did a good job, yeah, you can see that icon shows up in here. This is the image that we have seen. So I can, and if it is in smaller state, you guys can see it is compressed, but if you expand it, you can see the icon a little bit bigger. So you can actually do not need to test on the application itself. You can see it from the developer section in here. You can say you can check out what are the things you will see. So and different devices that you're going to be seeing. So if you're using Apple, you would have something similar like this, and the expanded view for Android, you will have this. For Apple, you will have something like this. So in this scenario, what we can do is we can test these things out. But if you need Apple, sorry. you need Apple device support to be there. What you have to do is you have to have the APN setup. That is something different. So if you do not have the APN setup in here, you won't be able to get this thing done for Apple devices. For Android, Firebase and Google services will do. Okay. That is like the basic of it. Any questions on this? Anything that you guys need to know in the notifications, how it happens? Because we'll be developing a separate section, separate application, which we, when we are creating an application, we can't come to this Firebase and send the notification. Sometimes we need to automatically generate notifications, and we need to send out to the users, okay, for some events that happens within our backend. So we have a separate section for handling backend. We need to send these things. So we need to set up that scenario. That's how we're gonna initiate messaging to our from our backend. We need to generate some message and send. That kind of situation we need to create. So we can't ask always the user to copy. I mean, it is not even possible at this moment. User should we should have a way to retrieve this app ID or the Firebase token, and using this Firebase token, we should be able to send a message. So we can't ask, okay, you will have a Firebase token with you, send it to us, then you will be able to send. No, that is not the case. We need this Firebase token, Firebase instance ID token, to be sent to our backend service, and the backend service should have a way to identify this user, and we should be able to send push notification to a specific user and all. You will find these things there. So we will be implementing the section where we can create our own backend to do this push notification. So before we move on to that section, do you have any questions on this? Okay, that's good. So test the path that we have gone. Okay, it's not gonna be easy. It's gonna have and it will be it will work once you get the hang around it. So won't be a big problem. So we'll move on to the next section, and we will initiate a backend where we can trigger a message where you don't have to work on these things. By the way, did we talk about the other Firebase functionalities that we have within the course, or we just use Firebase at this point? I can't remember. That's why I'm asking. think we did not use Firebase for this course content, right? Anyone have you can remember we have used something like hosting real-time database? I think we did not, right? Can anyone confirm? Did we use or not? Okay. All right. Do you guys know about these services? I'm not sure whether we like when we are talking about backend services. Of course, we can have backend services um, built by ourselves, or we can create backend. We can utilize backend services such as these things apart from Firebase. So you guys know about these Firebase services? I'm not sure. Anyone needs introduction, or like I'm not going to go through implementation on all these things. Anyone needs to know what these things can do, or you already know these things? I need an explanation on these things. Raise your hand, please. I might need some introduction. Oh, I'm completely new to Firebase. Okay. So who here have used Firebase, not in mobile, maybe in other scenarios? I have used Firebase for one of my projects or something. Okay, I'm confused. You guys haven't used, but you know everything. I'm not sure. I'm not following. So who have here need an explanation? Raise your hand. I need some explanation on these things, because the same thing that we'll be discussing on backend setup. Okay. All right. I'll go small introduction for each section. So probably we use the engagement and analytics. I think engagement section and the messaging. Yeah. So we have worked with the engagement section, where we can engage with the user using messaging. Okay, but there are few other capabilities that Firebase provide while we are building the application, and what sort of things it can help us. So these services, some services are not all, if I may. Most of the services within Firebase you can use or you can utilize these services to act as a backend for your application. For example, let's say you want to make you want to store some data within a database. Okay, so you might need the REST API to interact with, and that REST API is bounded to some backend framework like Spring Boot, Nest.js, anything related, something like that. And that backend will process that data and put it in a real-time database. Okay, so that kind of a setup is pretty much normal that you will find, but sometimes you might need a very simple database setup and you don't want to make things by your hand, or maybe you do not have much experience with database handling, then in a scenario like that, you can easily use services provided by Firebase, something like Firebase database. Okay, so so these things are like what we call a NoSQL database, and it's the main features is like it's update in real time, real time updates. That means if somebody is changing the database, changing some record, it will be automatically reflect. Sure. If somebody is someone else is also looking at the same document or the collection, they will have the same real-time update. So you don't have to worry about okay, it's like a collaborative database, if I may say. So I can change somewhere in the application, and the same thing will reflect on others, people who are looking at the same document or same collection. So it's real-time updates. That is something nice. And query language is very powerful, but thing is, if you are coming from a background like SQL, you have to let your SQL knowledge a little bit aside. Otherwise, you won't get into the NoSQL world or the queries that we are running. So there are a little bit of similarities, but in order to get the best experience or the best best use case of this, what you need is you need the proper understanding or proper way of doing queries. The two different technologies have two different way of doing queries, executing these queries. So you have to adapt to the database queries or database functions. So do not compare SQL and NoSQL databases. That is good. This is not good. So SQL databases are more into having things normalized, more normalized way. Relationship, we talk about relationships and everything. But in NoSQL database, we do not care about normalization that much. We always think about data fetching speed, how fast I can get this data in my machine. That's kind of mindset is there with NoSQL database. So when we are doing such a thing, we might have duplicates everywhere. There are techniques where you can update these things, but if you are coming from a SQL space, you might find it is odd, but that is the way. That is the way the application NoSQL databases are defined. So if you are into application where we need real-time updates and NoSQL databases are your choices, and you do not have to worry about scaling, like what will happen if the database is getting filled up, what should happen in that scenario. You do not have to worry about those things. The Firebase will take care of all the things related to scaling and everything. You don't have to worry that much about it. And so we can assume your backend or your database is handling as much as queries that we can go, but the problem with this not a problem, it's pricing. It will go up because sometimes if we have some sort of a wrong code or some query running for a long time, then there will be a problem in our code. We will be charged for all the queries that we are running. So we don't have to worry about the pricing at end. You will have some sort of what do you call free tier. So if I'm not mistaken, 50,000 requests or database access within Cloud Store. So if you are running a very small application, then you are good. But if your application requests more and more queries and everything, then probably you might need to set up the pricing and scaling, all those things. So Firestore can help with the real-time database, but it comes with pros and cons. So you guys need to figure out whether we are going to go with classical REST API backend, or are we going to use something like Cloud Firestore? Okay. It's up to the developer or the architect or someone who is responsible, whether we are good with NoSQL, whether do we need the real-time update. I mean, real-time update is a plus point. You don't have to always use the real-time update, but if the request, if the requirement requires, okay, we need real-time update to be happening, then I would consider using something like Cloud Firebase because of the complexity it's involved. If you want to set up something like real-time update, like what you do in Firebase, it takes a lot of energy from user's perspective to set up something like that. You might need probably something like WebSocket communication, and believe me, when it is coming to WebSocket and communication, it's a little bit hard to configure from a backend perspective. But if Firestore Cloud is not Cloud Firestore is providing that complexity, that abstract that complexity, so you don't have to worry, and you can work without an issue for the real-time updates. Okay, so you might have seen this real-time update while some applications, within some applications. So for instance, you shared a Google document with one of your friends, and they might see the if you both are editing the same document, same page, you might see, okay, person X is working on this section. You are working on different section. So both of the people who are involved in the document edit, or even more, they can see real time, okay, some person is doing some update over there and some person is doing something there. While they are typing, our content get changed, and while we are typing, the other person contents get changed. So that's kind of things happens when you use the real-time updates. So you can utilize something like that. And so take a look around Firebase database. It's fairly simple if you look into the implementation, and it's good for smaller projects. But if you are going with the cost and everything, you have to be very precise at the costing. Okay, So you have the analytics, app distribution, app indexing, like and different things. Different tiers have different pricings. So you can see that cloud messaging service, which one we use, FCM, is coming with a no cost. That means it does not limit you how much you send, how much you do. You have the you have it for free of cost, and there is a service called Crash Analytics. Those are free. And there are a lot of free services, but these are mixed ones. So it doesn't mean that if you're using FCM, Firebase Cloud Messaging, you should use the Firebase as the other services, like Firebase database should be used when you are using FCM. No, that is not the case. Firebase Cloud Messaging, you can utilize Firebase Cloud Messaging, but you can also use REST API, like what we have seen in our application. We are using GitHub. GitHub we are using REST APIs for showing us the application, all the GitHub users that we have seen within our application. If I'm not mistaken, this one, yes, this is coming from a REST API, and the test push notification is coming from FCM. So we can mix and match. That is possible, but there is no hard there is no rule or something like that that says, okay, I need to use Firebase for, if I'm using FCM, I need other services as well. No, you can freely utilize you can utilize free things that is available. Or if you find yourself, okay, I can use let's say authentication without any for like sending SMS and everything, you can utilize that. You don't need to go for a separate provider. If Firebase is supporting SMS, you can utilize that. So that's going to be easy, since you have already set up it. It will be easy. Other things, you guys can see the pricing in here. Check whether those pricings are good. If this is like no cost tier, that means you don't want to you want to pay anything for your testing and everything. And cloud functions, cloud storage, authentication, everything. You don't need to work with anything other than this. All right, let's go for the other services that we have. So we have the authentication. Yes, one of the services that you can use. Home authentication, what we can do is we can identify users whether they are legit or not. For example, let me get started with the authentication, so you guys see what are the options that we have. So we have authentications such as email and password. Normally what we can see within the applications, those are like email and password, and over the phone, or anonymous logins. Anonymous login means anyone can log in. So if you use email and password, you guys can see that we can enable that and we can save it. That will make we can have users coming in from email and password. So if I say a custom email, let's say shrandik@hotmail.com, password is whatever the password I need, and if I add the user, when I'm using the authentication mechanisms provided by Firebase, I can use that username and password method, and I can generate access token to verify it's me. Or other signing methods are also there. We have the single sign-on, where you probably have seen things like sign with Google, sign with Facebook, sign with GitHub. Okay, so you can enable these things, but these for Google, I think you don't need any optional setup. But if you are going with something like Facebook, you need these two things, App ID and App Secret, in order to work with Google single sign-on. So um, this is like a normal setup for even any application that you will see. You need App ID and App Secret. There are like all the other providers have the same things like client secret and client ID. So you need to configure these things. Once you have configured these things, what you can do is you can log in with GitHub. You will have you need to incorporate the initiation part from the application itself. Once you have done it, you can sign in with your GitHub user account and password. Okay, even if you're logged in, you can just pass away. So you have other methods like that, and of course there are like limitations. You can see how many people have used this service right now. Since we haven't utilized this, we do not have active users and so on and so forth. And you will have some other things that you can verify, but so there are things we can have paid and work. So you guys can enable these things, but you need to pay. There are some extensions that we can use with the authentication and everything, but this is something like beta experimental. So you can extend the given things with these extensions. Okay, so for example, we can use MailChimp for sending email. That kind of things is available. Yeah, so authentication is basically you can set up a sign-in method, or you can use normal username and password based authentication. Even it supports the multi-factor authentication, but it's like a premium or paid version that you need to get if you want these things. So the easiness of this if this setup is if you do not have Firebase authentication, you probably need authentication server that will do these things, and you need a backend that is capable of handling users, handling sign-on methods. There are solutions out there which is available for you to use, such as AWS Cognito and Keycloak WSO2 identity server. So there are a lot of services which provide the same functionality, but the problem is some of those services you need to set up yourself and make sure you have configured that thing with the database and everything, so you don't get messed up in there. And the other thing that you need to be focusing on this the easiness of this is if you want to block a user, you just have to delete his account or something like that. So you don't need a UI to be generated from scratch. You can utilize this authentication mechanism, which is provided for you. For some extent, it is the free version. If you can manage by, I think it is like, if I'm not mistaken, 50 users. If you are under 50 users, then I think you are good with these sections. And other things like email verifications, password resets, all you have to you can set up those things in here without an hassle. Okay, and you can send emails in here and everything that you want, so you don't have to worry about the applications. Setting up mail servers and everything, it's done for you. So there are templates and everything is in here, and all you have to do is provide the SSMD configuration, and maybe if you want to customize this customize these things, then you're good. Even if you don't have SMT configuration, we can have a built-in messaging system, like a built-in email system for us. So you can even utilize those things. So authentication, you can do a lot of things for a normal authentication. So you don't have to build everything from scratch. So authentication things are done for you. User registration, user sign up, sign in, deactivation, activation, sending emails. Most of the common patterns you will see in even multi-factor authentication. It is there. So if you need a complete solution for authentication, take a look around the Firebase authentication. And one other thing, there is the similar service like real-time database and Firestore database. So one is the older one and one is the latest one. They kind of provide the same service, database for your backend. So if you're interested in, you can like check that out. And both are like Firebase and real-time database, so both kind of serve the same purpose in terms of functionality. There might be a little bit of difference, but if I'm not mistaken, the Firestore database is the latest implementation, where real-time database was like the older version. And there is other services like storage. Of course, when we are working with the applications, sometimes we need to store some data from which is coming from the user. For example, it might be some user profile image, cover images, or maybe some documents that we need to store. So we don't have to store all these things from a backend. We can simply upload the file and we can store it in our storage here. Okay, so you don't need anything related to this. So when I am selecting a storage, it asks whether you have to starting the test mode. That means we are getting some rules that that will define who can access our bucket, who can bucket is in the sense is a storage area. Think it is like a separate directory for now, and who can access our services and who does not have access. Right now, all the paths can be accessed before 9:15, like a month we have to access. Once this time is passed, or this date is passed, what will happen is reading and writing for this storage will be blocked. Okay, so you have to extend that time in order to get into that place. So that kind of things we can do. These are like security rules. This is available for real-time database as well. So you have security rules. You can put who can write, who can read, who can do modifications, those kind of things. We can have these rules within our application in order to handle permissions. So we can say a certain user with an ID, you don't have access to this path, or you don't have access to write to this collection. Same goes to the storage. You have some bucket space where a normal user can access, or even if you have your personal user ID, then you can access that kind of options are there. But remember, there are these rules you have to fine tune on your own. There is rule set is something like this. You can master it while you are working. And if I hit next, and the one thing that you need to know about the storage, once you've selected the location, you can't change this. So this bucket will be created within this region and you can't change it afterward. So make sure the closest place for your application to run, most of the users are coming from this region. Make sure you select that. So in order to reduce the latency, most of the time it happens. So if I'm living in Sri Lanka and I'm trying to upload a file server in US, right now I'm in US Central. And what will happen, a person will come from Sri Lanka or somewhere in India. If they upload that file, those files should be sent into US servers. So it will take a little bit of time, but if you know the region of the people who are accessing this is within, let's say, Asian region, we should select a bucket or a location storage where it is near to us, so reduce the latency and upload time. So we can do that, and we can store most of the files, images, documents, and etc. Make sure you follow the rule guide in order to secure your storage, who can write, who can read. That kind of information is available on ruling section. So make sure you update your rules once you have created the storages. Okay, we talked about storage, and one other important thing is like hosting. This is somewhat related to web development at this point. You can host your website for free in Firebase. So we have a couple of websites. We can have a single page applications, like when you're using React or Angular. You can host your website for free in hosting, and you can utilize the Firebase authenticator. You can use Firebase real-time database, and what you can do is you can create a website and host it up to a certain limitations. Of course, it's not going to be, you can do everything and all the things, but up to a certain limitation, you can host your website, you can have a database, you can have authentication, you can simply build an application for your organization or for your personal projects. So it's really easy. So if you guys can if you guys can if you guys want something cheap, something that is like smaller in size, you can host it, you can storage, you can use authentication, whatever these functions that I have the functions that I have told you so far, you can use these things. Okay. Right. So hosting is more into web development and kind of things. You can applications in here, but most of the time you can it says the mobile web apps. That is also true, but emphasize on the web section. That means it's gonna be most of the time it's gonna be hosting like HTML files and CSS and all those things. So we talk about hosting, and the other thing is function, which is not a free version. If you want functions to be allowed, you need to update the project, because function is not going to be a free offering from Firebase. But basically what functions does is you have the opportunity to run some logics, some backend code. Sometimes what we call is the serverless function. If you guys have heard the terms AWS lambdas, functional programming, those kind of things, we can use these functions to handle that. For example, a function would be something like you need to run calculations, which is based on the database data. You might need a function to execute that. Say, for example, you want to generate a report out of the database values that you are having, and if it is taking to if you can't execute the function in our front end, or we can view it will take a little bit time. Using cloud function, we can run database query, and we can get the result, and we can save it in the database once again. And some cron jobs are like the things we periodically run. So for instance, at 12 o'clock every day, we need to send an email for our clients about the statistics of the web server. You can use functions, something like that. Or sometimes a function can be utilized in a way. Let's say, for example, we have hosted one of our applications in here, and we will receive what you call we will receive something like payment request. The payment gateway is sending us back the details. So a cloud function can be executed, process that incoming request, and do some changes in the database. So that's kind of things we can do with functions. It will be easy if you can run functions and do some things about it. So basically, you can you don't need a server to run this function. That means once the function is done, the service is no longer available. It's like the fun. Sorry. The lifetime of a function is at this execution time. So let's say the database query will take like 2 minutes. So the function will run for 2 minutes, and that's it. You don't need to have a running server to wait until the next request come in. The function would run for 2 minutes and it will be done. Okay, so if you are using a server side request or something like that, the server will be always running. When a request come in, they will do the request processing, and this till the next one is coming, the server will be idle. So it is not doing something. It will remain idle. Even though it is idle, we need to pay for that server to we need to pay the server since it is taking resources, taking power, taking everything. We need to up and running. But in Cloud Function, the billing mechanism is a little bit different. Or what you have to do is you have to pay something called the computing hours. That means how much hours that you will utilize to do a program, and that, let's say it is 2 minutes, and there's a special calculation going on with the Cloud Function, how it calculate the price. But basically, if you run a task for 10 minutes, you will be charged only for 10 minutes, nothing more, nothing less. So it depends on how much the function is, the complexity of the function, and whether it is running huge queries or not. Based on the complexity, based on the execution time, you will be charged. So the Cloud Function is truly serverless, and if you do not need a server that is running 24/7, Cloud Function can help most of the time. But remember, it is not the sometimes the serverless function can cost you more if you handle more than a server function, especially if it is taking a lot of your time. If it is running very high intense function, you might be charged extra. So make sure you utilize the Cloud Function where it needed, not all the time. Okay, that is not gonna work. So learn the pros and cons of function. Learn the difference between managing a server and managing a Cloud Function. Use the appropriate type of server, whether it is server or serverless, based on your requirement, and check whether you have a very long queue of functions or long queue of requests coming, and rather than running 1,000 functions, it might be cheaper to have your own server and handle those requests. So make sure you are doing the base calculations and everything before you using this function. It's not only available on Firebase. There are other providers, some AWS Lambdas, GCP functions. There are a lot of vendors providing this kind of support. So make sure you are using the correct version as it is. So the next thing is the one of the interesting part is machine learning. Okay, so you can have machine learning for text recognition and image labeling, face detection, like barcode scanning, like a lot of things that you will need ML related task. So you can use these services from your application. So for example, if you need something like a barcode scanning implemented, you can start with ML Kit and try with barcode scanning within your application. So you don't have to work on that. So these things are highly trained, and the training part is already done. We have to use, we just have to use it. So other things like face detection, language ID, landmark recognition. So all of these things are uh, already there. So you can use, okay, I need face detection on in my application. You just have to use these machine learning APIs. So it will be easy. You don't have to deploy your own machine learning model in your phone. If it is the use case, of course, you can use something like TensorFlow Lite, which is running on your mobile, and you can detect faces and everything. But if it is something that you need more sophisticated, more trained, you can use these APIs for your face detection like this. And there are like custom ones that we can use, and there are like custom ones that is created something like TensorFlow. Say for example, this you have you have your own machine learning model that is used for that is trained for detecting let's say flowers. Okay, so you have something like face detection, but you come up with a model. You have trained your data. You have a nice working model which will automatically detect flowers. Okay, so when such a thing comes in, you need to host that model, or you need to have that model running somewhere. So most of the time, if the device is capable enough, if the device is powerful enough, you can run those models within the phone or device itself. But the downside of this thing is you will be utilizing a lot of computational power. You will need more um, battery power. So it might drain your phone fairly easily, fairly simply. So in order to avoid that, what you can do is, rather than having that model within your phone itself, you can have this model within the cloud, and you can have the model uploaded to custom section, like what you see in here at the custom model. You should have TensorFlow training model, like TF Lite is like the light version of the TensorFlow models, which is optimized for mobile and other mobility enabled platforms. So you can use your own custom model and upload and utilize that as you will utilize an API like this. Okay, so you can have your custom models, and you have like AutoML. I'm not familiar with this service. If I'm not mistaken, it is something tied to Google Cloud Console as well. So you train something from Google Cloud Store and you can connect that here. Sorry, I haven't used personally this feature, but I have seen some features that we can features that can help with existing app with these things. So machine learning is one of the things you can work with. It will make things easy, rather than if you take hosting a TensorFlow model, it's quite a setup that you have to go through. You have to set up the TensorFlow server, you have to buy a server, you have to maintain that, and you have to deploy your models. It's gonna be a little bit hard for us to manage such a service. So right now what we need is we need to train it, and we just need to upload it and we can utilize that. Of course, there are like things with the server initialization, server handling, those kind of things. But at least the process is way more easier for testing or even production. So if you have machine learning models, you can train on these things and have a look around here. And other things, remote config. So remote config is one of the neat features that you can have. For example, you need to disable some features in your application based on the configuration coming from the backend. You can do that. So, for example, we need to change maybe the whole application background color. Okay, if we have a configuration written in backend, and if I say okay, now the background color, if now somebody did not give a background color, it will be default white. But for some reason, let's say we are coming near Christmas, and rather than deploying an application with Christmas theme, what we can do is we can make the background a little bit red, and we can change the theme into red. So all you have to do is come to configuration and put a red theme there, and we just need to activate that theme, so it will look like more customized for the season. So that is one use case of the remote. And there might be cases you will use some third-party APIs. So those third-party APIs will share you some API keys that you want to change. In a scenario like that, you can change the API key while you're using the application. So the API key change configuration that we do, it will affect all the platforms, all the applications which is using. So you don't have to build another version of it and send it somewhere else. And sometimes the API services that we are using, those things might change over time. Say for some reason, we are changing our REST API from AWS to GCP. Okay, we are changing that. So when that happens, our IP address might change, our URLs for the application might change for some reason. And if we have configured that remotely, what will happen is we can easily change that variable, and all the application will have that changes reflected. So you don't need a different build to do that. You can make this without an issue. Some other features might be, say for instance, for limited time, you want to block certain services. Let's say, for example, you are using a payment app, and for some downtime or within your backend downtime, you need to disable the payment services for 15 minutes or 10 minutes. All you have to do is create a configuration, and you can say you can disable the button, or you can disable the functionality, or you can hide the tab or whatever. Based on the configuration, you can remotely change the behavior of the application. So that's kind of thing can be available and will be useful to do in application, rather than you deploy some new build, and even that we can't guarantee that everybody in that time they will download that, and the application will be available for them. So that is not the case. So if you want to remove something from the application itself, just use remote config and you can disable, enable. But remember, this configuration is, as far as I know, it will affect all the users. It is not something like I can maybe we can find a tricky way to like group the users and everything. But it is going to be a little bit hard to target a specific user and do the changes. But other things like the configuration that we that we are running, that we can change for the whole world or whole users, we can use remote config. So it basically changing your app behavior while it is running, so without deploying any builds. So those are the things with related to builds, and there are a couple of things for monitoring, like whether if you have enabled crash analytics, what we'll do is if your app crash, they will provide us more detailed version why you have crash, what those things. So performance, you can test the performance of your application, whether they are doing good or doing bad on certain devices. And there is test lab where you can test on different phones, different devices, different models. For you will have few testing hours built on it. So you can run test within your application, and these things like if you know unit test, roboto test, this kind of test will be executed on real devices, and those devices will tell whether the application will crash or not. So you can run your tests on these devices and check whether it is working or not. So there are like a set of devices that you can choose. Okay, you can run your application on these devices, and it will run the things that we have configured, the application, the test unit test and everything. Once it is run, it will tell, okay, this certain amount of test is passed and this certain amount of test have failed. So we can have a report why it was failed, what is the reason. Then based on that report, we can fix any issues that we are having. So you don't need to own 100 physical devices, but you can have one single devices with you. But you can use test lab to run your test cases all around all the devices that is available there and get the results back. So it will be easy for you to test in multiple devices, multiple screen sizes, and so on and so forth. And other thing that will help with that distribution. So distribution is something like you can distribute your application directly in app stores. These are like the releases, but sometimes we need to distribute application among testers, among shareholders, this kind of scenario. So using app as distribution, you can say, okay, we are releasing a test version, use app distribution to download it and test it around. So you don't have to wait until you release, you can distribute these things with the others, and they can give feedback on your application. And other things like remote config, we have talked. So yeah, there are like analytical things that we can do. We can check the dashboards and everything. And there are like authentication, like same services are repeating in here. So we have talked about most of things. Like, I mean, for basic application, we should do. So you guys can check those things out. Yeah. Any questions from these services that you need to know, because we'll I can explain more if you need anything else with these services. Okay, seems not. I'll stop sharing for now and stop